emodels.co.uk. Make something awesome. Hey everyone, it's Foxx, Model Making Guru here. Hello and welcome to part 2 of our build of the Meng Warship Builder U-Boat Type VII. A silly fun little build for my very good friends and channel sponsors, emodels.co.uk. Now if you remember in the last episode what we did was got most of the construction done. We got the hull and the superstructure done. We got most of it glued together and assembled and put onto the base. This is all glued together now. We also did a little bit of light modding. We added some little flanges here and some little pieces to the rear plating of the deck, or deck plating as we like to call it. I'm talking rubbish today. These little yellow pieces, these are all from the Tamiya 135th at Panzer IV, little bits we've cut out and stuck on. We also added this flagpole at the back here, which is from the Airfix 1/72nd scale JU52. It's part of the, I don't know what you call it, tubing, piping, the struts that hold the floats onto that plane. It's the float plane version. And we got everything basically assembled to that point. So what are we doing today? Well, today is the fun bit where I need 16 pairs of hands, because today we're going to take care of the antenna wire. Yes, we're doing the fiddly stuff today. Now, if you know your U-boats, you know that U-boats had a steel antenna wire that went from the stern to the tower and then back to the stern on the other side, and also went from the tower to the net cutter at the front there with some isolators along it. Now, I'm not looking to reproduce it exactly. I'm not going for, realistic reproduction here with all the correct number of isolators. I'm going to do, because this is a cartoon version U-boat, we're going to do a cartoon version antenna wire. First thing we're going to use, I'm going to personally use this, which is Easy Line. Now, don't panic that you can't get this from eModels, because you can't. I've had this for many years, so I might as well use this. However, if you need to get some, get this stuff. This is the Ammo by MiG version. It's basically the same stuff. It is essentially rubber thread. It's just a thread, but made of rubber. Now, this is much better than using string or actual thread for a number of reasons. One, it can stretch massively. This stuff can stretch up to 700 times its normal length without breaking. It's great for creating taut antenna wires and things because you can stretch it and glue it, and it will keep that tautness. You can bend it and stretch it and it won't snap. And also, more importantly, unlike thread, it doesn't go fuzzy over time. And a lot of people will use like actual thread and they'll put beeswax on it to stop it going fuzzy. Or you could just use rubber thread like this or the ammo stuff and it'll just save you all that hassle. So yeah, we're going to use that. We're also going to use lots of tweezers. I do have somewhere a pair of helping hands, two little sort of crocodile clamps on arms that I really do need, but I can't find them. So because of that, I'm going to have to do some extra planning. The other thing we'll need is some super glue. You use super glue to set the Easy Line. And that's really it, apart from obviously the parts we're going to use for the isolators. Now, I do have here, if you're able to see these, two little tiny parts here. I've got two of these. This is a little sort of, almost like a proper wooden block type thing, but it's not. I'll tell you what it is in a minute. I've got two of those, and I've got this one Y-shaped piece here, which I hope is in focus. This is to reproduce the Y-shaped isolator on the front here, and these two will go towards the stern on each of the antenna wires to represent the isolators at the back. Now again, they're not realistic, they're not true to the real thing, they're just a bit of silly fun. Now these parts are actually from the gun assembly, from a Trumpeter 135th Striker, from the assembly that has the 50 cal gun mounted on the turret. These are all bits that come off that. So I've just trimmed them and cut them around a bit and made them fit. So how are we going to do this? Well, this is where we need to plan it. The best way I can think to do this with just normal 2 pairs of hands is the reason I've left this off. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of the threads, I'm going to put it through the hole and glue it under here, place this loosely in place, start working the thread along to here. I will then place the isolator at this part, and then we'll stretch the same thread. We'll then loop back round this side and back through the hole at the other end and be glued into place. Then once that's done, I can then glue the Easy Line from here to the isolator and make sure it's all pulled taut, and then we'll have the Y-shaped antenna wire there. Now that's the plan. Whether that actually happens, we'll find out. One other thing you might need as well, or I will need, cocktail sticks for the super glue. So let me go and steel myself and we'll crack on. Okay, so let's get going now. I do apologise if this section ends up being a little disorganized. The best way for me to do this is not ponce about with different takes and doing different, you know, cuts and takes and things, just to get it done, film it all in one go and sort out the best later in editing. So let's find out. So what we want to do first, I'll probably end up talking rubbish and repeating myself, apologies. Now we're going to get some easy line first of all, if you can find the end. I've got my scruffy cutting mat down because, yeah, we're going to have a lot of super glue lying around. Now the trick with easy line is to use more than you think you need to start with, because I need this to run from there to about here and then back round again. So that is going to be more than enough for that, but I'll take more anyway, because there's got, like, how much have I got of this? 30.5 meters. It's going to last me for a long time. I don't need to worry about it. It's better to have too much and trim it back. So I'll move him out of the way. So we've got here the easy line, which you can just stab yourself in the finger first, is always a good step. Then we'll take the first piece there. So what we're going to do first of all is we will take some of the thread. Now this is probably all going to be most of the time out of focus, because it's quite hard to get this in focus, and my priority now is to get this done, not to make it look good on telly. So yeah, so what we're going to do first of all is we're going to take the thread. This is the rear deck plating, this is the top bit, the bit you see. We're going to see if we can thread the thread through the tiny hole, and it's not as easy as it looks, because of course thread is flexible. Okay, there we go. So that's the thread in there, and it's come out. Yes, lovely, lovely, thank you very much. What we shall do is we'll try that again. Let's try that again, shall we? Yeah. We'll try again. We'll get the thread in the hole there. Keep in mind, of course, I'm trying to do this without any form of stereoscopic vision. I don't have stereoscopic vision, so it's very interesting for me. Now what I'm going to do is take a little bit of blue tack, just a tiny amount. I'm very gently going to put that there just to hold it in place. I don't want to put a lot of force on it, because if I jam that blue tack on, I'll just end up making a mess. So that's on there. What we need to do, this is where experienced sewing comes in handy at this point, dealing with threads and things and that. So we have the thread here. So what I'm going to do again is get a little bit of blue tack. I'm going to blue tack this to the desk there, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I've just lost the other piece of blue tack that I put down somewhere. Where did I put it? There it is. So first thing I'm going to do is just jumble that down there, blue tack it in place. So this is now on there. So the first step is nice and easy. I'm just going to make sure we've got some glue on here. Whenever you use super glue, when you've taken some out, just wipe the nozzle with a bit of tissue. You don't have to, but it just helps avoids the end clogging up. And then we should get a cocktail stick. Should have been prepared, really, shouldn't I? Take the cocktail stick and we'll get a tiny amount of the super glue. Now this is the thick super glue, so it's a slower setting than thin. It doesn't really matter. You can use thin at this point. It doesn't matter either way. I'm just going to glue this in place. There we go, lovely. Try not to glue the blue tack, obviously, because that would be a bad idea. Okay, you want to be generous with the glue here, because you really want to lock it in place. We're going to be pulling on this in a few minutes, so we want to make sure it's firmly attached forever. If you want to, you could have taped it down. That would be one option. So put this somewhere it's not going to get stuck into anything. Find a bit of foam. There we go. So I now need to let this dry for a minute, so we'll come back when that's dried. Back in a moment. Okay, that's had a good 5 or 10 minutes to thoroughly dry, and as you can see now, it is firm and tasty. Yes, that's done. So that's underside there sorted. Next, we need to get this back here. So what I want to do now is get this thread to go up and over this little bit here. On a real U-boat, this is like a little armature that the cable goes through, but on this it's just going to have to stick on the top. So what I'm going to do is basically hold it in place So I'll stick it down here so it's firmed, locked in place. If I can stop fighting with the thread. 1 second. There we go. So that's locked down. So what I can do now is get the thread, and I'll basically just want to pull it there like that. So what I have is some Instacure cyanoacrylate glue, CA glue again, it's super glue, but it's very, very thin. And the way super glue works is if it's thick, it takes longer to cure. If it's thin like water, it cures almost instantaneously. And I can confirm this stuff is instantaneous because I've already stuck myself to the bottle, my scissors that I opened the bottle with, some tissue that I got the glue off my fingers, my finger to my other finger. Yeah, I've stuck myself to about 8 different things just with a little tiny bit of it. So now I want to get this on here, but I don't want to make a mess. That's why I'm using the thin stuff now. It really is like water. And if you'll see here, it really is like water. So all I need to do is put a tiny drop there, touch it to that. Oh, nope. I don't want to stick it to the cocktail stick, dear. That's not what I'm intending to do. Let that stick for a second. Hopefully this will stick. Yes. Oh. Oh. Challenging. I don't want to stick it to the cocktail stick. Yes. If I can get it to stick. Because the thing is, if I touch the cocktail stick to there and glue it down, it just sticks to the cocktail stick, which is not what I'm after at all. Quite challenging. I need a dot of it here, but I don't want to make a big blob because it'll just look like a big blob of glue. That might be a better job. I'm pulling it very taut. You may not see it, but I'm actually pulling it quite taut. I want it to be taut. The trick with this stuff is, if you want it to look like proper steel cabling or anything like that, you have to pull it tight so it's straight and taut and doesn't move. And there we are. That's now stuck. So I need to leave that for a minute. Try not to fiddle with it. What I might do is get some of the slow cure glue. If I can get a tiny amount. I need the quick cure glue just to get it in there to start with. But if I can now get a bit of the slow cure glue and get just a tiny amount, just to bop it on, make a little bead like that. Hopefully it'll just give it a blow. It'll just sit on it and lock it in place. The trick with super glue is you kind of want to use as little as possible because you don't want to make a big blob. There's 2 reasons. One, obviously, if you make a big blob of the glue, then when you paint it, it's going to look obviously like there's a blob of glue under the paint. But also, super glue does, it can go foggy and frosty, and that can give you a surface texture. You want to try and avoid that if you can. So I'm going to let go of that now and see what happens. There we go, beautiful. So you can see how it's pulled tight. It's not going anywhere. This stuff does glue wonderfully with super glue. CA glue is the trick. And what you'll often do is when you're doing things like airplane antennae, you'll get a piece of the thread and you'll just put a dot of glue on the antenna and you'll just touch it to the glue and then let go, and you'll have this thread going across. You don't need to wrap it round anything. So I need to leave this for a minute again just to cure and set, and then we can do the next bit, which is actually on the submarine. Yes, submarine. Okay, so that's now glued in place. You can see it's a nice firm attachment. So what's next? Next we need to put this temporarily in place here. What I've done, by the way, to make this easy to get off, there are little sort of sticky out fins on this tube that hold it in place. I've snipped those off to keep it smooth, just so that it's easy for me to lift this up and out of place and put it back in again. I will glue it in at the end, but for what we're doing here, I need to be able to get this in and out nice and easily. So you see it just sits in there temporarily. So what's next? Well, next we start to do the fiddly stuff. So what we have, this wire now needs to go along here and through yon little tiny hole here. However, we need to add an isolator first. And for this, we're going to use one of these little doohickeys, one of these little tiny ones. Oh, if I can, where did that go? Oh. Where did that, oh, there it is, found it. I thought I was going to have to play the video back then. Oh. Right, so one of these little doohickeys. Now what I'm going to do with these, they do have a pronounced ridge on the inside, so I'm going to keep that on the inside, just to get them chiral and make them look like left and right versions. So we want this to be about here. So what I'm going to do, first of all, is get the thread. And apologies if any of this is out of focus, because it's hard for me to keep track of where the focal point is while I'm doing all the wiggly fiddly stuff. So I'm going to take this, we're going to thread it down. There we go. Lovely. Just need to get enough through there that I can grab it and pull it through. Lubbly jubbly. So that's going to go through there. And I hope you can see. You probably can't see this because of my enormous hand. And then we need to also fit it back through the other side, up through the other side. So what I'm going to try and do is, I'm going to do this now. Tweezers. We're going to get the tweezers on there like that. And I hope this is in shot and in camera and everything else. I'm going to try and... Ooh, that wasn't long enough. Again, keep in mind I'm doing this without the benefit of stereoscopic vision, which makes for a nice challenge. There we go. I think. There she is. There she is. See where I said the sewing experience would come in handy? So there we go. So that's on there. Now I'm not going to glue this on at all yet, because that would be a silly thing to do. Because I want to make sure both of these end up in about the same place. And I'll do it on camera, dear. I need to make sure they both end up in about the same place. And right now, I've got no way to know whether that's going to be there, on that side. So I'm going to leave them unglued for the moment, and then right at the very end, what I can do is glue them in place. Now I don't expect them to be nice and straight. Where's the camera? Don't expect them to end up nice and straight like this. They'll probably all be all wonky and wibbly wobbly, but it doesn't really matter. This is just a silly fun build, remember. So now we take the thread, and I hope you can see all this. We take the thread and we feed it down to the floor there. Brilliant. We feed it, oops, into the tweezers. Oh, it's really hard to handle. We feed it into the hole here and down, like that. This is what I was really happy when I found these little sort of wedge-shaped pieces with holes in. They weren't actually that shape. I had to cut a chunk off here, but this little flangey bit was just the right shape, and I'm like, oh yes, yo beauty. Oh, that's stuck on there now. That's stuck on the exhaust. Get off. There we go. So what we have now is that is threaded through here on camera there. That is threaded through here. This isolator is still movable. It's not fixed at all. Yeah, we'll figure that out later. Anyway, what we need to do now is glue this here. Now the beauty of that, I don't know if you'll see it on camera because it's quite dark, but I want this to sort of come up here and just wrap around that bit of railing and then into the hole. So what I need to do is just let go of that. Go for me super glue again. We'll use the fat cement again, but a tiny amount. Or no, should we just brave it? Should we just brave it and use some of the thin? Okay. It's asking for trouble. This is a little tiny touch of the thin. There we go. I'll get that off. It's asking for trouble. I'll get some of the thick as well ready just to go, just in case. And again, when you get glue off the nozzle out of the bottle, wipe the blob off the nozzle just so it doesn't glue up itself. We'll get a little bit of the extra thin. I know it's not extra thin, you know what I mean. And as I said before, the important thing to do is make sure you're on camera, is pull this tight, really, and it's almost more tight than you think it needs to be. Pull it tight so that is now straight and right in place. And we're going to just quickly touch that to there. Tiny amount. hold it for a few seconds. Hopefully, if we're lucky, that should take. And I hope you can see this, because I know it's a grey deck and a dark grey string, and yeah, it's not ideal. So I'm going to hold that for a second, blow on it maybe, as we knock the camera. There we go. I'm going to let go now and see what happens. Beautiful. That's now in place. So what I'll do is I'll get a tiny bit of the thick glue and just lock it down. There we go. It's just a bit of extra security. The thin glue is just because it sets fast. So I want to get a little bit of that. If I can get the cable to set in place quickly, then that's fantastic. So now we have those two done, and they're looking nice and taut. So I need to leave this one. I'm being over cautious. I'm going to leave that for about 5 minutes, just to get it to set, and then we'll do the next bit. Back in a moment. Okay, next step. We're getting really challenging now. It's quite exciting. I quite enjoy doing this because it's fun and it's challenging. And when you actually pull it off, it's always really satisfying. So the next bit, we have to set up the little Y-shaped isolator here. Now what I need to do is, I've basically just sponged the little Y-shaped isolator piece into a bit of blue tack there, just so it's anchored in place. Remember, I've only got 2 pairs of hands. So what I'm going to do is find the end of the thread. Hibbidi-boo, hibbidi-boo. I'm going to thread this through. This is going to be a multi-stage, multi-pronged deck. So I'm going to thread this, maybe move it a bit further forward. Oh, this is taxing my old man eyesight, this is. Thread it through there, like that, you see? Okay, now what I'm doing here is this needs to be taut, because this will be taut here, will be sit here, and then there'll be a wire that will come along to the net cutter. But this piece of thread is going to go back that way. So for the moment, I just want to get things in place. So what my first plan is, this is roughly where I want the isolator to be, but it'll be hung up over here. So I need to get some glue ready again. I'll risk the thin glue. Oh, the wrath of the thin glue. It's still workable, miraculously. So what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can do it on camera for you. I'm going to pull it taut. I'm going to put it up like this, and I'm going to touch it there. I'm actually pointing it up, which may seem weird, but it'll make sense in a bit, trust me. So I'm going to hold that in place for a second. Give it a blow. Well, it doesn't matter if it's not 100% taut here, if I'm not pulling it quite as tight, because I will be pulling this taut when I do the bit to the net cutter anyway. This is just for the moment getting the cabling attached to the isolator. Give it a quick blow. Hopefully that is now glued in place. There we go. What I want to do now is wait for a second, because the next step, see how it's not massively taut there, but I don't really mind, like I say, because I will be pulling this isolator forward a bit. What I want to do now is wrap this cable, I hope that's on camera, wrap the cable round and back through again. So I'm just going to give it a second, blow on it. That should be dry enough now, so what I can do is try and feed it through again. Knocking the camera, of course, and getting old. It's like herding cats, this is. So I need to find the end of the cable. I keep saying cable and thread, and I don't know what you really want to call it. Try and get that under there. And apologies if any of this is out of focus or not on camera, because it's quite hard to do. I also have to have my head quite a way away, so it's hard for me to actually see anything. Where's the thread? There it is. I'm going to see if I can find the hole and thread it through. Think of your secretary. There we go. Nope. Oh, so close, so close. Doesn't help that I'm looking from the wrong angle. There we go. So I can now grab that bit and pull it through again. I can find it. again, this is where some threading and sewing experience comes in rather handy. Now I didn't need to do that, but it just adds to the effect, adds to the look. Get my little cocking tail stick, a bit more glue, pull that bit taut again. Just adds to the effect and makes it look like perhaps it's a steel cable threaded through a block of some sort, or an isolator. The isolators on a U-boat, if you look at them, they actually look like the kind of wooden blocks you get on sailing ships, you know, in the rigging, that kind of thing. That's what they kind of look like. I don't know if they're, I think they're ceramic. And they are literally isolators for the electrical cabling, because the antenna does carry a voltage. And the crew used to put a little flag hanging on it when it was in port to say, don't touch this because it's explosively dangerous. You'll zap yourself, apparently. Give that a blow. So that is now setting nicely. You see how fast this super glue does set. I mean, it's not, you know, fully set, but it's set enough that I can handle it. I can handle it. Right. Now what we can do, I'm doing all this in one big take as well. It's quite daring of me. What I can do now is pop that back there a bit. It doesn't really matter if it's not fully tucked, because like I say, I can pull it forward. It's just this bit here, as long as it's attached, then when I do finally attach this to here with a cable, of course I can pull it further forward and make it taut anyway. So this now needs to be a mirror of the other side. So it needs to go under this bit and up over the top. So that's what I'm going to do. Somehow, if I can do this somehow. Oh. It's not easy being... Oh, I've dropped it now and everything. It is quite fiddly. It would be a lot easier if I wasn't doing this on camera, because I've got to try and consider the fact that you've got to be able to see what I'm doing, which would be nice. Get in though. The other thing about using cotton thread or something similar, even really fine expensive cotton thread, is that the end of the thread does tend to like develop a little mushroom head where you cut it, and that makes threading it through tiny holes a right pain in the bum. Oops, knocking the camera. I do apologise. Oh, do you know, this isn't difficult. The difficult bit is just keeping hold of the cable, and it's like sewing. The difficult bit is cable management or thread management. You don't want it to get wrapped around anything, because that just makes life a nightmare. Right, so if you'll behave, go through there. There we go. Because it's not a thread, it does have a little bit of grip to it, so it stays in place a little bit. Of course, that's going to get stuck on that corner. Of course it is. There we go. That can pull there. There we go. Beautiful, beautiful. And what will happen now is, again, this isn't quite in the middle, but again, it doesn't matter. I'll line it roughly in the middle, because again, I'm going to glue this here, so this will still have some play in it, but that's absolutely fine. So this needs to glue in place here. So I'll get my, where's my cocktail stick? This thin, fast setting glue actually works better when it's 10 minutes old and been on the thing for 10 minutes, because it's a bit more controllable. Okay, get that super taut, tiny touch. You need a tiny amount. You don't want to dob big amounts on, because that just becomes messy. There we go. Apologies, I keep knocking the camera every time I go to blow on it. So it's a bit of cat herding, this, really, because you're just managing, only having 2 pairs of hands. Let me just put that over there. So, you know, I've got this bit here. Ideally what I'd have is, if I had my helping hands thing, which is little grippy sticks on a little stand, that would hold this in place up in the air, and I'd be able to thread it, but it doesn't really matter. It's worked just as nicely this way. So I shall hold this for a few seconds. When we come back, we'll do the next step. Nearly done now. Next step, more super fiddly. So we've got this back piece now. We need to get this cable, this wire, going back to the back here, like this, you see. And what we want to do, want it to go over the handrail like it does on that side to match. We need to glue it on here and then put it through here and glue it in place. This is where it's going to get fiddly when it goes in here. We also need to add the isolator, so we'll do that first. So the isolator is there. We've been here before, you know what's coming. Isolator there. Threading now, sir. Oh, threading very badly, sir. Oh, with the dropping. Oh, fudge-tastic. Hello. Hello. Don't be giving me no nonsense now. Oh. Frustrations. Right. How is this going? It goes in over the okay, it goes in over the top. So I was doing it the wrong way anyway. It goes that way around. Oh. Fiddly tiny things can be a pain in the bum. Especially when you drop them because you've got a cack hand. Right, start again. That goes down into the hole. Then that spins around so I can't see. Oh. This will not be. This will be edited down. Trust me. Down into the hole. Don't be making me look stupid on telly. That wouldn't be cool or grown up or clever or nothing. Right, now we need to do the same again, but this time going up from underneath. Like that, you see? There we go. Except I completely missed. Fox, you're an idiot. Oh. Oh. I don't know if it's old man eyes or old man hands, but something here is betraying me. Get in. Oh, there we go. Good, there you go. Good lad. Good lad. There we go. Lovely jubbly. Much better. Much better. Again, we're not gluing this in place yet. We're going to leave that dingly dangly. Bring that back down here. So we'll leave it dingly dangly because we can sort it out later. So what we need to do now is glue the wire in place onto the, whatever you want to call these things, the bit the wire goes on. Now we need to make sure it goes over the top here. And I need to pull this very taut because this wire actually has a habit of slipping down the side and not being in the middle. Where's my glue? So we shall get a little bit of the thin. We shall prepare the surface. In fact, no, we'll use the thick because the thin doesn't really work on that surface. We'll basically plonk that down there. Plonk. Give it a little blow. Now you could, if you wanted to, you can get kickers for CA glue, which are, it's stuff that basically instantly cures it on the spot. You're more than welcome to. I don't actually happen to have any available to me right now. I've got some somewhere. I don't have any to hand. And also, I haven't got an extra pair of hands to hold the kicker while I'm also holding the thing and the other thing. And now I don't have two pairs of hands. I keep saying that. I don't know why I keep saying that. Right, so we'll give that a blow. I'm reluctant to let go of this for another 5 minutes just to make sure. So I shall pause here and hold it for a few minutes. So then the real fiddly stuff starts. Back in a moment. Okay, what I did off camera, because I did a little bit of videoing, but the camera messed up. All I've done is I've lifted up this deck plate at the back and just threaded the cable through there. It's not glued in place, it's just threaded through. It's a bit springy, so I just had to gently pull it. I've just pulled it through the hole, I've not glued it yet. It's glued to here, obviously. What I want to do now is the same as I did with the first one, get it glued on the inside. The difficulty is, this is all springy now and it'll ping back and everything else, so I can't just hold it up and lift it up and glue it. What I need to do is a two-stage attack. First of all, I need to use a very tiny amount of the thin glue, tiny as I can, and just, maybe not that much, and just pull it taut and touch it there. I just want the real tiniest amount I can get on there because I need to glue that in place. so that when I turn it over, it doesn't go all slack again. Try a little touch there. That should be enough, I hope. Give it a blow. It probably isn't the easiest and most logical way of doing this, but it's the way I came to do it anyway. Okay, so I need to give that a second just to dry properly. Let me give it another blow close up. There we go. So I need to give that a second, so I'm going to give that a second. I'll be back in a moment. Okay, now what I need to do very, very carefully, because this is a tenuous bit of gluing down there, it's not the best gluing in the world, is I need to ping this up a little bit. Now it is going to snap back because it's under tension from these, so I can very gently turn it over, very carefully. I've got to be super, super careful right now. And what I need to do is somehow glue that back in there. So I'm going to get a little bit of blue tack like we did before. Turn this round a bit. We'll turn it around that way. Got to be careful because I don't want to get any wires tangled up, and I don't want to make a mess of anything. So it can all go horribly wrong. So I need to get this back there. I don't need to do this bit, but think of it as like a little insurance policy, just to make sure everything is in place. So that's there. It's not exactly hyper taut or anything like that down here. I can pull it taut a bit, but it doesn't really make any difference because it's not taut enough. Let's take that off. So that needs to go back around that way when it's finished. Okay, perfect. Get my super glue. I'm going to use the thick glue this time for ease of use, and we're going to be dead generous. I don't want to go. One thing I realised is I don't want to go too heavy with the super glue here, because if I make a big bulb of glue, oops, Daisy. If I make a bit, where's it gone? Come back, come back. If I make a big bulb of glue, then that might actually get in the way of everything fitting together at the end. So I need to get a goodly amount of glue on there, but not make it a massive bulbous pile. So what I'll do is I'll give it a few seconds, then when it's gone a bit squidgy but not fully dried, I'll squash it down with the old cocktail stick. And then when that's dried, I can pop that back on there, glue it in place, and we can just do this bit at the front of the vessel, and we're done with the rigging. I say rigging, it's the antenna. So I'll need to obviously cut this back as well. Once that's glued, I'll cut this back. So let me go and let that dry for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll do the last bit. Bye. Okay, last few bits now. I'm going to see if I can do all this in one take with a few cuts probably at the end to get out of the swearing and things like that. Right, so this is now dried. What I need to do is first and foremost snip that off. There we go. That's now dried, so this just needs to basically go back in place and be glue and gefartened. So I'm going to get my Tamiya extra thins. Back to glue time now. Happy glue face. Some glue in there. Little bit of glue for the gluing. There we go. Don't need a lot. And we'll just splong that down. Carefully as. Carefully is brew. But it comes to seesaw, so you have to kind of push it around a bit and mess around with it. It's not a perfect fit, but it does go in. There we go. Beautiful. Bit of glue in there. Just needed a little bit of persuasion. Yeah, it's not a magnificently fitting piece, unfortunately. Clamp it a little bit and push it with the clamp. Get in. But it's close enough for a silly fun build. So it's not the best fit in the world, but hey, it doesn't really matter. Oops, Daisy, there we go. Push it the wrong way, there you go. Fantastic. Just make a mess of that, Fox. Well done. There we go. Right, let's get it balanced. There we are. There we are. So now it does stick up a little bit, but it's equal on both sides. So I can live with that. Oh, far too much. Touch of the glue, touch of the glue. There we go, that'll evaporate away. So there we go, that is now on and glued. That was a bit of a mess around, wasn't it? Look at Dory now. So I'm going to try and do all this in one take for you. What I need to do first of all is get these isolators lined up. Remember how I said I didn't glue them specifically for this reason? Because I need to line them up so they're about level. Weird spinny things. Spinny. Zip. About there, I think, will be nominal. Now, there's no way these are going to be perfectly lined up or anything. I don't even expect that. But what I'm going to do is take my life in my hands once again with the extra thin super glue. Every time I use this, I'm taking my life in my hands. I've glued myself to half the things in this room over the course of this evening, just using that super glue. It's been very much fun. Now, what I need to do is, unfortunately, they're going to have a bit of a wobble to them. They're going to be not exactly straight, but it's not the end of the world. What I'm going to do is quite simply touch. Oops, probably a bit too much. Let's get the other end that's not got glue all over it. Touch and touch and touch. And agitate it. Make it explode with spinning. And again, touch and touch. Just to lock them in place. Oops, there we go. Just to lock them in place. So they're always going to be wibbly wobbly. Like bees, like little bee wings or something. They're always going to be a bit wibbly wobbly, especially when I drop them like that. But they're just really, you know, they're to look interesting. Once it's on a shelf and not moving, they're not going to move. Yeah, they're not. They sort of work. They sort of work. Anyway, I'm happy with them. It's a silly fun build. I'm not too fussed. Right, so that's that bit. Now we've got to do the front bit, which is from the net cutter all the way up to this bit here. So let us release the Kraken. Or maybe not. Yes, let's release the Kraken. Let's just release that for the minute. It's going to ping back, but that's fine. Take this off. Now, what we need to do is, the idea is that I'm going to put the rope on here, and then I can pull this bit forward as far as I need. So that's going to be how it's going to work. So, first thing I need to do is attach the thread to here. I drilled a little hole in the net cutter, the front of the net cutter, because why not? It seemed like a clever thing to do. Actually getting the thread through the hole, of course, it's a whole nother kettle of fish. Let's try from this side. Yes, huge success. Get in, my son. Right, so what we're going to do here, this is going to be really hard for you to see, I know, but hey, what can I do when I'm working on my own? Right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab both pieces of thread. If I can even grab one of them, it'd be handy. I don't mind grabbing both. Right, grab both pieces. The first thing I can do is bring back the glue, and I can just quickly just touch it here on that side, just briefly. This is just to lock it in place for a moment. Hold it right there. Let's just get that thread away for now. Okay, you go away, you go over there. This is where things get interesting. Ja, das ist richtig. So, witness, if you will, the chaos that is about to ensue, because this is the bit where, on every other U-boat I've built, this is the bit where it always goes to pot usually. So, yeah. If anything's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong right now at this bit. So what I want to do is thread that under here. That's a massive hole which makes life... Ooh. I was about to say it's a massive hole which makes life easy, and then it just didn't go through the hole. Come on. I have a pen, I have an apple. Get in that hole. It's the biggest hole in the world. You can't possibly miss it. There we go. Good lad. Right, so now what we can do is pull this forward to about there. How do we get this to go straight? This is the tricky bit, you see, because you never know if it's going to be straight or not. I have a cunning plan. I'm going to stop the camera. Back in a second. You're looking at this and thinking, hang on a minute, something's changed. What's gone on here? My apologies. I didn't film it, but there was a disaster and a massive, massive major panic. Let me explain. That bit of plastic we had on here, I had to abandon it for two reasons. One, it didn't sit horizontal. It sat at a funky angle. I couldn't straighten it. And two, the deck gun was getting in the way of it. I hadn't planned the deck gun in, and it was like it looked ridiculous. It was just sort of sitting on top of the deck gun, and it looked terrible. So I was left with no choice. I had to get rid of it, but what the hell was I going to do, because I'd already built the rest of the rigging, and if I had to take all the rigging off, I would have given up the will to live and just abandoned this build. But that's not something I can do, because it's an E-Models build. Oh, what was I going to do? Tell you what I did. I cut most of that plastic part away, leaving just a little C shape of plastic there. I removed the cable that we glued in here. I just took it out completely. I then took a new piece of thread, I folded it over on itself and made a rope. I wrapped it round the C piece, this little sort of C-shaped piece of plastic, glued it in place, and then pulled it over there and glued it on top of, not through the hole, but on top of the net cutter to make sure it was in the middle. Then, an old chip builder's trick, I took 2 blobs of super glue and blobbed them here to make them into sort of makeshift isolators, just to make it look more like the real thing, because the real thing has a sort of bunch of isolators here, like they look like block and tackle, but that's kind of what they are. Then last of all, I very, very carefully and very nervously trimmed away as much of the C-shaped piece of plastic as I could to leave just that little nub behind. That's as much as I dared leave. I didn't dare do any more for fear of snapping or cutting the actual cable. So yeah, I had a major, and to add to that, while I was doing all that, because I was pulling on the cables, to give you an idea of how strong and durable these cables are, I was pulling all these cables around. None of them snapped, but this piece of plastic snapped off the U-boat. This little flange pinged off. I had to re-glue it and glue it back in place with extra thin super glue. So just to add to the panic and stress, you know what I mean? Oh, it's terrible. So yeah, so it's all gone, it all went a bit south. I did manage to recover it, and I think I'll get away with it. It's not quite in the middle, but you know what? Given my options, I'm quite happy with that. I'll take what I can get. So that is all glued in place now. The super glue blobs are still drying a little bit. That's why I've not put the deck gun on. It's just there. It does look a bit more realistic anyway. It looks a bit more like the real thing. If you go and look at the picture of isolators on U-boats, it kind of looks more like the real thing. I'm kind of thinking now, I wish I'd done that there, because they look silly now compared to that, but never mind. Oh, stressful, stressful. Anyway, that's going to do us. Thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned to the next episode. That'll be when we start the painting and the priming and everything else, so we'll crack on with that. And when I say painting, I mean very careful painting, because yeah, I don't want to break any of this now. I don't know, so stressful. But that's going to do us. Don't forget, of course, this episode was sponsored and produced for emodels.co.uk, my sponsors, and your one-stop shop for all your model making needs. Pop along to their website, emodels.co.uk, and have a look at what they've got. If you need something, they pretty much got it. And if they haven't got the exact thing you want, they'll have something just as good. If, however, you do need a specific thing, don't panic if it's not there. It's either just out of stock temporarily, or maybe it's something they don't stock, but they can get it from their distributors for you. So if you can't see something that you really, really want, drop them a line, give them a call, use the contact form on the website, and ask them if they've got it in stock, if they can get it in stock, or if they can get one for you. And the answer will always be, it'll be soon, or yes. So just give them a shout. If you can't see something you need, give them a shout. Anyway, until next time, thank you very much for watching again. Take care of yourselves. Go make something awesome. Go be awesome. Yes, you there. Go be awesome. And I will say, adios, amoebas. Oh, how stressful that was. Oh, I need all the coffee in the world now. All the coffees. All the coffees.